Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're diving straight into what's been happening in Nepal politically, specifically around the Nepali New Year, 2082 BS. A lot of statements, a lot of reactions.
Yeah, it's been quite active. We've got reports from, Nepal News, Nepal Page, Gorkapatra, Kathmandu Post, MyRepublica, quite a range.
Exactly. And the goal here for everyone listening is to really get a handle on the key political currents. What are these statements hinting at? Any potential shifts? But, without getting totally bogged down in all the details.
Right. Think of it as us helping you connect the dots. What's the real story behind these New Year messages and all the political chatter that followed?
Okay, let's start unpacking it. First up, the message from former King Gyanendra. He released this just before the new year kicked off.
And it's interesting how he framed things, particularly about peaceful expression, democracy.
And he specifically mentioned that protest in Tingkun, the one that got quite intense recently.
He did, which is, well, quite pointed, isn't it? Referencing that March 28th protests led by Durga Prasad, the one calling for the monarchy's return.
The one that unfortunately turned violent, yeah.
Yeah.
2 deaths resulted from that.
Exactly. So for the former king to bring that up in his New Year message, that feels like a deliberate choice. What do you make of that?
Well, he said something like, it's a beautiful feature of democracy that different groups can express their views freely. Sounds okay on the surface.
Standard democratic principle.
But then he immediately talks about the violence, the arson and vandalism, the loss. Says it left him deeply saddened.
So acknowledging the violence, but after framing the expression part positively.
Right. And he also mentioned increasing public awareness as a positive thing. And that, quote, true democracy exists where there is a tradition of listening to the people's grievances.
That phrase, increasing public awareness, in the context of that specific violent pro-monarchy protest, that's quite something.
It does seem to hint at maybe validating the sentiment behind the protests, even while, condemning the actual violence.
That seems to be how the UML took it. Their reaction was pretty sharp.
The UML, one of the main parties in the current government, what did they say?
Well, they basically questioned his motives straight up, condemned his remarks about Tinkune, said it looked like an attempt to undermine the republic and basically glorify violence.
Glorify violence. Wow.
Yeah, and they really honed in on him calling it public awakening when there was, looting, vandalism, arson reported.
So for the UML, it's a direct challenge to the republic they helped build.
Absolutely. And Pradeep Gawali, the UML Deputy General Secretary, he pointed out the former king hasn't really taken responsibility for the violence.
Especially after that earlier statement he made back in February.
Exactly, the February 19th one about moving forward and appointing a commander. The UML seems to see this New Year message as fitting a pattern they don't like.
So clearly a lot of tension there. The republic versus monarchy debate?
Yeah.
It's still very much alive, it seems.
Even in New Year's greetings, yeah. It underscores how sensitive it all is.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's look at Pushpak Kamal Dahal, Prachanda, the CPN Maoist Centre Chair. His New Year remarks.
Right. His message had a different feel. More forward-looking, wishing for a prosperous year, calling for unity, moving forward, not looking back. That was a key phrase.
Standard New Year's stuff, maybe? Good governance, self-reliant economy?
Some of it, yes. But then he said something quite pointed, especially given the context we just discussed. He said, the alternative to a democratic republic is a stronger democratic republic.
Ah, okay. So that sounds like a direct counter to any monarchist ideas floating around.
Seems like it, yeah. A clear reaffirmation of the current system, maybe acknowledging it needs work, but sticking with it.
But then, didn't he also suggest something about a new government?
He did. That's where it got really interesting. He hinted that the foundations for forming a new government had kind of emerged with the new year, even suggesting a Nepali Congress-led one.
Wait, a Nepali Congress-led one? But they're currently in coalition with the UML against Dahal's party.
Exactly. And remember, he'd apparently said something similar earlier in Chitwan, hinting the current coalition might not last.
So, he's actively suggesting a breakup of the current government, while wishing everyone a happy new year.
Pretty much. Injecting a whole dose of uncertainty right there.
How did that go down with the current ruling parties? The UML and Nepali Congress?
Predictably, not well. They basically shot it down, called them baseless rumors, accused him of, greed for power. They insisted their coalition is stable.
So a united front from them, publicly at least.
Very much so. Min Bishwakarma from the Nepali Congress called it a political stunt. And he even said they've repeatedly rejected Dahal's proposals to ditch the UML and team up with the Maoists.
Oh, really? So Dahal's been actively trying to break up the coalition behind the scenes.
That's what Bishwakarma claims, gives you a peek into the maneuvering happening.
And the UML, what was their take?
Pradeep Gawali, again, weighed in, called Dahal's remarks frustration at being out of government and obsession with power.
So the ruling parties are trying hard to project stability, despite Dahal stirring the pot.
Definitely. It's fascinating, isn't it? Dahal throwing these ideas out there, maybe testing the waters, maybe just expressing discontent, and the coalition partners pushing back firmly.
Okay, let's broaden that again. Let's talk about the wider reactions to that pro-monarchy demonstration itself. The one before the new year, where people welcomed the former king in Kathmandu.
Right. That event definitely sent tremors through the political system.
How so? What were some of the reactions?
Well, look at the Maoist Centre, Dahal's party. They actually paused their own awakening campaign in response.
Really? Why?
They said, look, monarchy returning is unlikely, but the fact so many people showed up, that reflects frustration. Frustration with the current government's failures, specifically bad governance.
So even the Maoists, who fought to end the monarchy, are acknowledging the crowd size signals something about public dissatisfaction.
That's a pretty significant admission, isn't it? They even talked about discussing mass protests against the former king's activism with the Socialist Front. So they're worried, but framing it as a symptom of governance issues.
Interesting. What about others? Madhav Kumar Nepal, Unified Socialist Chair.
Oh, he didn't mince words. He directly blamed PM Oli's government, said their incompetence and bad governance led to the resurgence of these, quote, reactionary elements.
So the blame game kicking into high gear.
Pretty much. He stressed the need for Republican forces to stay united to protect the system.
What about the big players currently in power, like Sher Bahadur Dubha of the Nepali Congress?
His reaction was quite different. He sort of brushed it off, called the demonstration just noise, not a real significant wave.
Downplaying it. Try to project calm, maybe.
That would be the logical interpretation, yeah. As a ruling party leader, you want to suggest everything's under control.
And PM Oli himself, the UML chair.
He took a more confrontational approach, tried to ridicule the pro-Hindu, pro-monarchy groups. He even suggested they were backed by outsiders, pointing to a photo of an Indian political figure supposedly at the demo.
The foreign hand argument.
A classic tactic, really. Trying to delegitimize domestic dissent by framing it as externally driven.
But not everyone bought that.
No. Robbie Lamachain, the RSP chief, had a different take. He said the government needs to handle this carefully because ordinary people are joining these protests. And he also blamed government inefficiency.
So Lamachain is saying, don't just dismiss this. There are real people involved with real grievances.
Essentially, yes. Recognizing it might be more than just fringe elements.
What about political analysts? Any broader perspectives?
Yeah, people like Tejas Sharma Wagle offered a more systemic view, arguing that these protests are really a result of the collective failure of all political parties and leaders over time.
Collective failure.
Mm-hmm.
So less about blaming one specific government, more about a general disillusionment.
Exactly. Wagle urged introspection from politicians instead of just pointing fingers. It's a call for the whole political class to look inward.
That feels important, that maybe the pro-monarchy stuff is just a symptom of something deeper.
I think that's a key takeaway. That sentiment, however strong it actually is, seems to be tapping into a broader public frustration with how things are going, generally.
And did the Maoist Center pick up on that collective failure idea?
To some extent. They talked about needing a common stance among the parties that signed the 2005 anti-monarchy agreement, but they also hinted they might partner up again with Congress and UML if those parties correct themselves after their perceived governance failures.
Keeping their options open, though.
Always. That's Nepali politics, right? Alliances can be very fluid. They seem willing to shift if the situation demands it or if they see an opportunity.
Okay, before we wrap up, we should probably touch on other signs of unrest, shouldn't we? It's not just about the monarchy question.
Definitely not. The teachers' protests, for example, they've been ongoing, demanding the School Education Act.
And they planned something symbolic for the new year, too, right?
Yeah, burning their party membership cards. A symbolic act to say, this isn't about party politics, this is about our profession, our demands. It's just frustration with how education gets tangled up in partisan issues.
That's a strong statement. Any other examples?
Well, there were reports of tensions flaring up at the Parsa District Administration office during talks after a communal clash.
Right, so these other incidents alongside the big political messages, they paint a picture of, well, a society with quite a few pressure points right now.
Absolutely. It's not just politicians making statements. These social issues, these protests, they provide crucial context. They show the different frustrations bubbling up.
So let's try and bring this all together. This deep dive into the start of Nepal's new year.
Yeah.
It really shows a political scene buzzing with significant messages.
Yeah. You've got the former king hinting at things, raising eyebrows. You've got a key opposition leader, Dahal, criticizing the government and even suggesting it might fall.
And then the reactions from the ruling parties trying to shut that down, plus the backdrop of public discontent shown by those protests. The pro-monarchy one, the teachers.
It creates a really complex, maybe even volatile picture right now in Nepal.
And for you, listening, hopefully understanding these different threads, the calls for unity, the critiques of governance, the monarchist whispers, the protests, gives you that crucial context for whatever happens next.
It definitely feels like a potentially pivotal moment. This interplay is fascinating.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Given all these perspectives, all this public frustration we've talked about, what do you think might be the real catalyst? What's going to truly shape Nepal's political path this year?
Is it going to be the usual political games between the parties? Or will sustained public pressure from different groups force a change?
Or maybe something totally unexpected? It's certainly complex, and there are a lot of ways things could go.